felt like you could not get a break? Have you ever felt like you were being pulled in 150 directions and you were mentally, emotionally sinking? If you've ever been that person, especially as a leader, this segment is for you. I am Dawn Marie Morris. I am the Chief Training Officer of the World Class Training Institute. And before I get into this amazing content, I must share with you that the Leaders Lounge is here for leaders, specifically designed to help give you everything that you need to, number one, have that exhale moment as a leader. Number two, come and get all of the goodness that is going to help strengthen you in your leadership walk. And thirdly, provide you with some tools, tips, and strategies to undergird what you know and need as a leader. Some leaders have been in um, a leadership role for a long time. Some leaders are brand new. In either case, there is always an opportunity to grow and to learn and to be better. And so the Leaders Lounge provides one of the mechanisms for you to do that. Of course, the World Class Training Institute, which is my organization, is designed to help maximize human capital, which is an organization's greatest resource. And we do that through the delivery of leadership and professional development training programs. So everything to help leaders and their teams to be their absolute bests is in our wheelhouse. So that can be from personality assessments, emotional intelligence, systems thinking, time management, delegation, interviewing skills, conflict resolution, business communications, which is another big one we're going to get into one day, knowing when to email versus when to call versus when to text, how to structure those pieces of communication in the right way so that you're building relationships, all very important. And we help with all of those things. So if you are interested in any of that, at any time, please make sure that you go to the World Class Training Institute. I'm just going to quickly show our website, which is worldclasstraining.net. That's worldclasstraining.net. You can also Google the World Class Training Institute, and we should come up as well. World Class Training Institute in Nashville, Tennessee. And before we get into our amazing content, the last thing that I want to share with you, I am a two-time author. The latest book is Unpacking Agape, the 7 Languages of Intentional Leadership. And you can also get that at worldclasstraining.net/agape. That's worldclasstraining.net/agape. I'll leave that up for just a moment while I get into this content. So, as I said or asked, have you ever been running and running and running and running and getting pulled and pulled and pulled and pulled and felt like you did not have a moment to rest? As leaders, it is so essential that you take time to rest. What's so funny is before I set up for this, I have notes here on my phone, and I didn't want the notes to go away as I was chatting with you all. So I went to display and I put it on never off, right? Always on. And what it said in the message is that you will use more energy by using this setting. And I said, oh my goodness, this is just perfect for where we are going. Because if we're always on, we're never set to go off, then we are going to use more energy in that setting. So as leaders, it is important for us to take our display, our personal displays, and go into off mode. We must go into off mode occasionally. In fact, rest is not an option. Rest is a requirement. Now, what stops us from getting into rest mode? What stops us from getting into rest mode? Well, from what I have witnessed, there are three things, and I'm going to share those three things with you all right now. The first one is OPP, other people's problems, not the song. You're down with OPP. OPP, other people's problems. Now, what do I mean by that? As a leader, you're probably like, well, I'm a problem solver. People hire me to help with other people's problems. Why should that be an issue? Well, because when you are handling other people's problems and all of their problems, not helping them to critically think through their problems, but instead resolving this person's issue and that person's issue and that person's issue, then you become depleted and do not have enough to be the visionary. You don't have enough to be the strategist because you have allowed other people's problems to consume your leadership journey. So as a leader, it is important for you to be a consultant. And in some cases, you have to be the resolver. But in a lot of cases, you want to be the one who creates thought so that your teammates and your team members can begin to solve problems on their own. It's that whole ideology of, if you give a man a fish, he will eat for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, he will eat for a lifetime. So as leaders, it takes a little time to teach and to help the person critically think through their challenges, or even find the answers for themselves, because a lot of times people don't want to read the directions or they don't want to read the signage. They'll just come ask you where it is. And of course, you've been there, you're experienced, you may know the answer. And so you just quickly blurt it out. But what you've done is, in some cases, enabled that person to not utilize their own brain power. And so they become a sucker and a drainer of your energy. So you've got to resist the, as they say, disease to please in some cases, or that overreaching thought that if I just handle it for them, we can move on, they can take care of it, and the next thing is going to happen, because all they're going to do is come back to you again and again and again. So you must resist other people's problems. And this goes along with the next thing that keeps leaders from being able to rest: overestimating your need meter. So sometimes leaders will look at their role of being needed and being so excited that people need them that they overestimate that and feel like if they leave, if they go have lunch, if they go away for a week, the team is just going to fall apart. Well, let me tell you something. If your team falls apart, shame on you, because you have not trained and developed them in a way that they are able and willing to handle the business in your absence. The sign of a great leader is not someone who's always visible, but the sign of a great leader is actually someone who can step away, and when they come back, the ship is running well, because they have trained and developed their team. They have delegated effectively because they have determined who has the skill and will to handle certain parts of the business in their absence. They have gotten beyond just being productive to developing and building their bench. As leaders, you must not overestimate your need meter and underestimate your ability and your skill of developing your team members. Because if, as a leader, you don't develop your team and you don't create a team that's able to be functional in your absence, and not only be able, but they're willing and they have the respect enough for you as a leader, then what's going to end up happening is either one, you won't be able to go up to the next level because your boss may not want you to because they'll think the team is going to fall apart. That's a concern. The second thing is your team ends up not feeling like they're really contributing at the level that they should. So that can turn around and bite you if you are not taking the time to develop the skill set of your team members so that you have the ability to go away and exhale. You've got to be able to go away and exhale in peace. Exhale in peace. All right? That's two. Third reason that leaders cannot go away or feel as if they cannot go away is that they are majoring in the minor. Now, what does that mean? Majoring in the minor means that the leader has spent so much time taking care of the minutia, putting out fires, that they have not, again, been the strategist, the visionary that they need to be in order to have the overarching organization or team running in the way that it should. Now, what does that look like when a leader majors in the minor? It could look like the leader who either dirty delegates, which means that person gives a responsibility, but then they go and they do the tasks themselves. Or it could look like the person who is micromanaging, which means they've delegated a task, but they are all along the way not allowing the autonomy of the team members to complete the work. So by micromanaging, they've never actually seen if the person could accomplish the goals in the way that they should. Majoring in the minor is also allowing everybody who wants to get on your schedule to get on your schedule. Every time somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I want a meeting. Hey, I want a meeting. Hey, I want a meeting. Hey, what are we meeting about? What are the other ways that this may be handled? What are the anticipated outcomes of the meeting? And then, as Warren Buffett says, no meeting needs to be more than 30 minutes. It's rare that I have a meeting that I schedule for greater than 30 minutes because it should be able to be handled if we're doing it proficiently within a 30-minute window. No matter what, we need an agenda. We're not just meeting to meet, because if we don't have an agenda, we are not going to be focused. So then you end up majoring in the minor. Your whole day is gone because you've been caught up in meetings all day, and you can't really even give a solid accounting for what happened. So you've got to make sure that you manage your time effectively. Sometimes people want to meet with you, and really what could have happened is they could have even sent an email, or they could have had another team member of yours handle it, or there was another way that this particular concern or this particular meeting could have been handled. Now, I am definitely someone where if there's a conflict, we need to sit down and meet. If there's something new that's coming out where everybody needs to be on the same page, that's a great time for everybody to come together and meet. Personally, as I am growing and building relationships with my clients, I prefer to sit down face to face, eye to eye, and let's have a meeting. Those are foundational and relational building activities, and they are necessary and they should happen. But if somebody is upset because all of the books were not stacked correctly, and now we want to be in a whole meeting about that. That is majoring in the minor. That did not need to be a whole meeting unless it's happened several times, and now we need to look at a strategy for how to have this not happen going forward, because the simple email saying, last week the books were stacked incorrectly. Would you mind making sure that your team members have 3 rows and 10 books in each row? If that's not if that doesn't happen the next time and the next time, or I even say the second time, well, hey, let's meet to figure out where the gap is so that we can close that gap. Right? And we're making it simple here. There may be some other larger challenges that need to be talked through, but you have to really think about when people are scheduling you for meetings, what is to be accomplished and what is your ad or anticipated ad for the meeting. Now, I know sometimes people's bosses will call them into meetings, and if you're finding that significantly or for a significant amount of time, your boss is calling you into meetings that are not either productive for you or that could be handled by someone else offline in your touch base meeting, then have a discussion, not necessarily saying, I'm called in all these meetings that are wasting my time, but have a discussion with, hey, here's what my day looks like. Can we talk through this weekly meeting that I'm assigned to for this particular department and what my expected ad is and how we may be able to work through bringing somebody else to those meetings or doing something differently so that I have a little more time in my day, right? Real nice way of freeing up some of your space if you're finding that your meeting time is not being used effectively. So now we've talked through some of the reasons that leaders are not taking that time to rest or feeling like they can't take time to rest within a day. Let's talk about now the next piece, which is why rest is a requirement. Well, first of all, rest clears the mind. I go to church, but this is not a church show. But I will share that there was a boat that was shaking and everything was off kilter, and Jesus rested. I believe that's the story, right? He went and got still. I have found as a business owner, as a leader, that when things are going crazy and whack all around me, that the best thing that I can do often is to go get still. I may not go necessarily to bed, although sometimes I just take a nap, but I will get still and clear my mind. And then when the answer comes, I move. Because the answer cannot come when I'm clogging my mind with a lot of distractions and a lot of other thoughts and a lot of people coming at me. So I suggest that when you are thinking about something that's heavy or you need to make a heavy decision, step away. Go and rest, because rest clears the mind. It is essential for that. The other thing is, along with what I said previously, it does allow for consideration of resolution options. Oftentimes, if we're going, we haven't fully considered all of the options that may be viable for resolving whatever concern we have. So oftentimes, when I take a moment and I'm able to rest, I'm able to think through, well, if we go in this direction and these particular circumstances happen, then this could be the outcome. Or if I go in this direction to resolve this, and these are the options that we go with, then this could be the option. Now, let me be able to weigh that, right? But the weighing only happens because I'm able to sit back, come out of the forest, right? Because they say sometimes you cannot see the forest for the trees. Come out of the forest so you can see the trees, and then you can determine the best direction. You cannot do that when your mind is clogged and you have not taken the time to rest. And then the third thing is, it is a spiritual replenishment. When you start again after you've rested, there's a refreshment that comes over the spirit. So it's important to take that time so that you can replenish your inner self. It prevents you from going off the handle, from yelling, from not being able to socially and self-regulate. That pause, and it's not always that you can, again, go sleep, go rest, take a moment, but within you, start being able to pay attention to your energy window, pay attention to your amygdala. And that pause in some circumstances, or that rest, is a brief rest. It could be 10 seconds. It can be a minute, because you know that you're not in the right head and heart space to handle whatever it is in front of you. So you need to step back and replenish your spirit. I recently saw a very tragic situation that happened in Memphis, where a gentleman lost his life. He was a pastor. And in watching the video of him, moments beforehand, the attorneys were saying that the person kind of looked a little agitated. I'm not sure if he was or not. The look on his eyes, though, and the way he got out of his car after the situation had, where he could have just driven away, might have lended itself to someone who was not being self-regulated in that moment. And that's what the attorneys are suggesting. So we have to think, again, a tragic situation, not sure if that was the case or not, because we do not know the whole story. But as I was watching that and listening to the attorneys giving their account of what they're going to use as their defense, that's what they're using, that the person was not self-regulating in that moment, and that led to his ultimate demise. So as we're thinking about how we're handling people, we must think through how we can rest in the moment sometimes. Just rest in a moment, pause, reflect, come out of the forest so we can see the trees, and then make the best decisions. So how do we get there? Got 3 quick things I want to share with you, and then we will be done for today. So the first one is, you have got to set boundaries. You've got to set boundaries. And it's not being mean. It's not being a push off, but it is saying, you know, I'm handling some things right now. Let's schedule a meeting. If your team members come to you and they have things that they say, hey, this is an urgent thing, I got to get this handled right now, and you know that either it's your time of rest, or it's your time of reflection, or it's your time to work on something, you've got to set boundaries. You've got to schedule that time. I recommend to leaders that you even have on your calendar, this is my open meetings time. So anybody for that week who has a concern, and I would set those at 15-minute windows, right? Maybe 15 minutes for, you may want to do an hour and a half. So that allows you to get in 6 people. If your team is that big, who have concerns, you can come during open meetings time on Thursday. And these are the hours, hour and a half, 15-minute window, scheduled time. Once those 6 are up, then there are no more for that week. And you've got to stick to that. You've got to make sure that you stick to that. Otherwise, number 1, people won't believe you. Number 2, people will not respect it. So you've got to make sure that if you set it, number 1, if you set it and commit, don't not see your team member when you've said you're going to see your team member. Don't put it off. Don't make it a negotiable because, oh, this person wants to come and speak with me. Now, of course, again, because we're talking about setting boundaries, you don't want the person to come to you every week and they have a concern. We're setting boundaries. Hey, you had a time last week. We're not going to talk about the same issue. Let's close the door on this particular issue during this 15 minutes. Send an email afterwards. I always say close that up. And then if you have a large enough team, you might even want to say you have an open meetings opportunity once every 2 weeks or once every 3 weeks, once a month, whatever it is, where you can come and talk about anything that's not a part of the touch base if you have a concern. But you've got to make sure that you set those boundaries. The second thing that you have to do if you are going to make sure that you manage and you get your rest is to create what's called white space. So what is white space? White space is time on your calendar in between meetings that allow you an opportunity to breathe. So on my calendar, if I am scheduling where I have to go out of town, I don't schedule meetings after meeting after meeting. I'll schedule a couple of hours of meeting, and then I'll have maybe an hour in between where I know I may be having to finish getting ready, or I may have to finish up something that happened from the previous meeting. I don't know what might go in that space, but it is a clearing so that I'm not having my calendar all with one thing on top of another, on top of another, on top of another, on top of another. Because then what happens when you do that, you get caught up in the busyness of the day, and you do not want that to happen. You're busy, 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 busy. We're going to a concert in Chicago in May, and I told my friend who's coming from Grand Rapids, I'm in Nashville, she's coming from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I said, Ray, now this concert 7:00 on a Friday. I recommend coming the day before, but minimally you want to be off on Friday so you can drive up early, because if you plan to come just in time for the 7:00 concert, what's going to happen? She's going to be late because there's probably going to be traffic. She might get stuck on her job. She's a manager, so there could be things that come at her. If she doesn't plan to get there by putting white space in her day, she will be late more than not. So you've got to make sure that you add white space so that a meeting can be talked. Somebody may say something that kind of, if they haven't made you angry, trust me, it's coming. They might say something that makes you angry. So then you have to go into the next meeting and you haven't even decompressed from the last meeting. As a leader, you need that time to decompress so you can what? Clear your mind and be able to be present for the next thing that's in front of you. So you want to do that. And then the third thing that we want to share with you in order to make sure that you are getting your rest is you want to calendar your mind. So what does that mean? Calendar your mind. So a calendar is what? It's a sifting device. So when you calendar your mind, what you are doing is sifting out the stuff that is in that minor category. Don't focus on that. Try to get to a place, and we do have the power to control our minds, where we are filtering out the stuff that really doesn't matter. Even if it's somebody else's minor, it might not be your minor. I'm sorry, somebody else's major, it may not be your major. Don't allow their major to become your major when it's really a minor. Calendar your mind. Filter out things that are not in line with where you're going, what you need, how you can rest, how you can develop. If it's not a part of that, calendar it out. calendar it out so that it does not get stuck. And then, like when we had to, or you can call it a sifter, right? When I was making cakes with my mom, we would have to sift the flour, and then sometimes there would be the little chunks at the top. So the little chunks in that particular case were the things that we threw out, and the stuff below was the nice fluffy flour. In this case, it's going to work in the reverse. The stuff that we colander out, that's the little stuff, the fluffy stuff, and the stuff that remains in the colander are the things that are going to be of benefit to you. But the best way to get there is to make sure that you stay focused on, is this a part of my big, I say a big three for the day? What are my big threes? If it's not, filter it out. Filter it out. Build that white space. Make sure that you set boundaries so people cannot clog you up with the busyness of the day. And make this stuff non-negotiable. Make your time non-negotiable, because then you will show up more times than not with your best self for you and your best self for your teams. And you notice I said you first, because my favorite motivational speaker, Lisa Nichols, always says, I don't know if she always says, but she said in this video, you want to stay at the front of your own line. Stay at the front of your own line and make sure that you honor the requirement of rest. All right, y'all. This is it for today. It's been my pleasure serving all of you all as you go through this week. Always remember these three things. I'm going to just show them again. They are boundary setting, white space, and then calendar your mind. Calendar your mind. Remember your white space and set boundaries. All righty? Fantastic. So, until next time, always remember the World Class Training Institute is here to maximize human capital, which is an organization's greatest resource. And we do that through the delivery of leadership and professional development training programs. You can go to worldclasstraining.net, scroll down, schedule time to meet with me, and we can talk about how to build your teams to be their best professional selves. Worldclasstraining.net, and always go and pick up our book, Unpacking Agape, the 7 Languages of Intentional Leadership. Language is best demonstrated by behavior, because I always say, if I tell you I love you, but if you don't feel it, should you believe it? No. So if I believe that you're an intentional leader, I'm going to know by your behaviors. And there are 7 great languages in Unpacking Agape, because leaders are definitely servants, and you want to be sacrificially, selflessly caring and concerned with your teams. And finally, at the World Class Training Institute, always remember that when you are better, we are absolutely better. Take care.